what's going on to all my WandaVision MCU fans out there, and welcome back to my channel, Movie Files. Elliot back again with my weekly recap, breakdown, and review of the latest episode of Disney Plus WandaVision. We're talking episode 7, which was titled Breaking the Fourth Wall, and we have a lot to break down in this spoiler review. But before we dive into it, as you all can see on the screen now, make sure you're following me on all my other social media accounts, which you can find those links in the description below. If you are new to this channel, welcome to the community. Consider subscribing to the channel, and while you're at it, hit that notification bell. That way you all can get the alert from when I drop new content. It would mean the world to me if you all can like and share this review. It really helps out the channel, but I also appreciate all the support. And every single week I do these reviews to interact with you all, so let me know your thoughts on this 7th episode. Did it live up to your expectations? Were you somewhat underwhelmed? What did you think about the reveals? But more importantly, what do you all hope to see in the final 2 episodes of WandaVision? Let's talk about it all in the comments below. So as I do, quick little plug, every single week, as you all may know by now, every single Saturday here at Movie Files at 3 p.m. Central Time, myself and my amazing co-hosts Amanda and Chris, we host a live WandaVision discussion, breaking down the episode, talking about all the big moments, and we also have some amazing guests that tune in with us as well. And those guests are Michael from Black Gay Comic Geek, we have Q from Q Reviews, and we have Shalon from the Binge Zone. So definitely tune in tomorrow as we break down this episode from top to bottom. We'll also be talking about all the big news that we got from the MCU this week. So again, tune in tomorrow, 3 p.m. Central Time. See you all there. One more little thing I want to address. Just last week, like the end of last week, there was like this, I don't know, rumor out there that if you add up all the math in regards to the minutes that we've gotten so far in the show, and if you all remember what Kevin Feige said, I think it was during the press junkets of WandaVision, that we're supposed to get 9 episodes in 6 hours of this television show. And so far, correct me if my math is wrong, but I calculated 246 minutes, which equals this a little over 4 hours of WandaVision so far, which, if 6 hours are to be true, what Kevin Feige said, that means we have 2 hours left in 2 episodes. An hour per episode? That will be fantastic. Let me know if you all think that we will get 2 hours, or maybe like a really extended episode, like 40 minutes, and then the last episode is a little over an hour. That would be fantastic. But let me know your thoughts on that. But let's get into this breakdown as we open up to this new decade, which paid homage to shows like Modern Family, which I never really got into Modern Family, but I've seen my fair share of episodes and kind of know the tone and how they break the fourth wall. I know it's comedic genius for a lot of people. We have one of my favorite shows of all time that this show pays homage to, which was The Office, and we'll talk about that reference with the intro. And also, I thought there was in this show I watched a lot of, a tinge of Arrested Development. So again, all these last few weeks have been shows that I'm really big fans of, but nonetheless, we see Wanda waking up in bed. She's acknowledging that her anger got the best of her, hence the expansion of the Hex. We all know so far that Wanda's powers are very influenced by her emotions. First time we met her in Age of Ultron, we see what she did to Vision in Civil War, obviously her going against Thanos, and obviously her anger showed out in Endgame, and we're seeing that in this show. So she kind of acknowledges that as, again, she's breaking the fourth wall, talking to the audience. This was actually the clip that they played the other day at GMA. And something to notice in this scene, as the kids go up to wake up their mom, we see Billy and Tommy, the twins, alluding to their game is glitching out. And I like the reference that it shows the controllers, and it shows in this episode and various episodes prior to this, Wanda's not in control of the situation. And we find out who's been the big bad, or potentially one of the people behind this all along when we get to that point. But also we see that Billy talking about to his mom that he's hearing more voices, which means that he's getting more of his abilities, more of his powers, but also alludes to the fact that there are more residents in Westview. As we cut to Wanda waking up, getting some breakfast, she notices again things are glitching out. We see the milk changing, different decades of the milk carton. But also, if you all noticed, there was a missing kids on the back of that milk carton, which there's some running theme going on that we'll talk about a little bit later in this review, with kids going missing, and particularly the twins going missing in this episode. So something to keep an eye out there. I don't know if Pennywise has made his way to Westview, but as we kind of cut to, we get the intro, which I'm just going to say it now. Office, one of my favorite shows, my favorite sitcom of all time. The intro was a little, yeah, it was the Scranton intro, and we see Wanda, and she's the creator of all this, and that stuff was obviously integral to the show. But I wish it was a little bit of a better intro, because all the intros so far have been fantastic. But this one, my favorite show, a little bit of an underwhelming intro compared to just, I was hoping for more. But let me know what you all thought of that intro. But back to the recap. We get a brief moment of the only scene that we get with Hayward this episode, which again, I'm keeping my eye on that gentleman. He mentions that he's going to do a launch, which we go to a little bit later with Monica's reveal about him burning down Westview. Again, he has a mission to get Vision, and if that means to burn down Westview to get to Vision, that speaks a lot to his intentions and what he wants to do with our boy Vision. As we cut to the expansion again of Westview, the new circus is in town. We cut to Dorsey, who this episode reminded me a lot of the Dorsey from the Thor movies, where she wasn't as annoying as she is in those films, but for some reason I just didn't like Dorsey's implement in this episode. Again, it was key because she was kind of recapping Vision on what went down before he got into the Hex, but it was something about just the writing, the acting, that it was just like, I'm not feeling Dorsey as I was in the previous episode. But that's just me. Let me know what you all thought about Dorsey's particular interactions with Vision. I thought that those moments, key moments, were some of the weaker moments for me, as well as some of the stuff outside of the Hex. And we'll get to that a little bit later. But as we cut to a very interesting moment where Billy mentions to Wanda, where's Dad? Why did you say the other night at the Halloween episode that our dad has died? This is the second time he's died. And Uncle Pietro said that, and she immediately cuts him off and say, he is not your uncle, which again alludes to the big reveal that we get later on in this episode. But a really good joke that I like from this episode regarding Wanda referring to Vision being made out of vibranium and the kids have tough skin. That was some pretty clever and really funny writing, in my opinion. And in comes the person that's always there to help out Wanda so far. In comes Agnes, and since we last saw her at the street of Ellis, she is now there to take over the kids, to watch them over. As we know, whenever Agnes is around those kids, bad things tend to happen. They age up, dogs die, things of that nature. So now that she's watching the kids, we'll talk about that here in a bit. But once again, we see things around the house turning to different decades, again showing that Wanda has lack of control. We go to Monica Rambeau and Jimmy Woo. We see that Jimmy has now have the email from Dorsey talking about the project of the Cataract that they're doing on Vision, which it shows that Vision was online, or at least that Hayward was trying to get him back online. We have to remember that Hayward has had Vision in his possession, or at least Sword's possession, for the last 5 years. After Infinity War, they retrieve Vision body, and we don't know what they put in him, what they tried to extract from him. Again, as I mentioned many weeks ago, don't be surprised if Ultron makes a reappearance in this show. But cut to maybe a somewhat underwhelming moment. Now we get this major that introduces us to the machine that she made for Monica. I am to assume that major is not a pivotal character in the future episodes. If she is, that would be cool, whatever the case may be. But we still haven't met that engineer. I think that is something that will be coming later on in this show, if not in maybe Captain Marvel 2. But I'm pretty sure that we're going to meet that engineer as potentially a post-credit scene of next week, or in the finale. Again, the Reed Richards of the world, the Blue Marvel of the world. Some people mention Riri Williams, things of that nature, but we don't get the engineer. They're making us wait just another week. But as we cut to Dorsey being awakened by Vision, which I was hoping that wasn't going to be the whole thing in the episode. I'm glad that they woke her up out of her sleep. Vision needs some answers. He's going to finally get it. And again, this was some of the stuff that I was mentioning in regards to some of my criticism with this episode. The slapstick funny moments with the circus and them talking to the camera, breaking the fourth wall. That stuff, to me, the writing was just a little bit underwhelming. The jokes really wasn't working for me. And again, Dorsey just wasn't, I wasn't vibing with Dorsey in this episode. And this was one of those moments when they were leaving the circus and the guy who was Hayward's henchman, or whatever you want to call him, was like chasing him around. That whole stuff to me just didn't play out well in my personal taste. Back to Wanda's hex breaking as she's talking to the interviewer, which was the voice of a man, and we know the reveal of Agatha Harkness was the one behind the camera. But was Ralph, did he make an appearance in this episode without the audience knowing, but Wanda saw him? I don't know. Let me know your thoughts there, because she was very confused about that, because the person behind the camera said, maybe this is what you deserve. which cuts to our commercial, which I love these commercials, love breaking these down, which was the Nexus feeling depressed commercial. Like the world goes on without you. Nexus is a unique antidepressant that works to anchor you back to your reality or the reality of your choice. Very key words. Now, in regards to Nexus, there's a couple different connections with the MCU as well as the comics. In the MCU, if you all remember from Age of Ultron, Nexus was where Tony Stark went to at the end of the film. It was like the hub that knew everything in regards to what was going on with Ultron, all that stuff. But in the comics, the existence of Nexus beings or people who have the powers or the ability to alter the flow of time. Now, Wanda and Vision are considered Nexus beings in the comics, and it doesn't happen to be a coincidence that we're seeing a show revolving around altering time, which may lead into Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. So definitely something to keep an eye on in this week's commercial, the importance of the word Nexus and what it means to the future of the MCU. Really nice commercial there. Cut back to a very interesting scene where we see the twins going to Agnes' house, mentioning that it's, or we should say Tommy saying that it's quiet there. And he looks at Agnes and says, well, you're very quiet, which explains a lot about her reveal later on in the episode because she has some abilities of her own right. She's not the only one, is not the only special being in Westview. Cut to Monica Rambeau gearing up to save Dorsey. We get the shot that we've seen in the commercial before where she's in this machine, she's in this truck. She goes into Westview and she can't get through. It's matching her density. We see that the truck is being rewritten due to obviously the effects of the hex. We see Monica, as Wu is saying, get out of there, Monica, opens the door. And I don't know if you all notice this, but when she opens that door, it like flies off the hinges, which alludes to her slowly getting her abilities. And as every superhero does in every superhero moment, Monica doesn't give up, even though this hex has kind of denied the access to getting in. She just walks right in herself. And this is a really cool moment. I thought the visuals were really kind of cool as we kind of hear different quotes being said from previous films like Captain Marvel. We hear Marie's voice. We hear Carol Danvers' voice, aka Captain Marvel. We also hear Nick Fury. So it's a nice little flashback of her just, again, becoming her own hero as the lines recite her being left at her grandparents, her mom leaving her, Captain Marvel saying those things to her. So she is now has become aka Photon, aka Spectrum, Spectre, whatever you want to call her. She now has her abilities. We see that her eyes are glowing like they do in the comics. She can see the different radio waves. She has now become the hero in the comics. I'm so excited to see Tiana Paris take on this mantra of Photon and see what that means for not only WandaVision, but of course the future of the MCU, and particularly in Captain Marvel 2. So really cool moment there. Cut back to Dorsey and Vision as she kind of recaps him on what happened. It is really important in this moment because Vision, as an audience member, you just kind of realize and remember that he has no free will from his very own existence, from being, Tony Stark's AI for the longest time in Jarvis, him being created by Ultron, him being put into this hex. He never has control over what's going on. As we see, he's trying to get back home. He thinks it's Wanda putting in these roadblocks, but no, at least I took it as it was Agatha that was stopping him from coming home. He's going to come home next week, which I can't wait for my predictions to get to that point in this review. But going into the fight, we get the fight between two superheroes in Monica and Wanda, as we see Monica bust into the house and tries to tell her it's all for Vision. Wanda doesn't want to hear that. She lifts her up with her power. She tries to throw her down, but we get the superhero landing, as Deadpool always points out, which, by the way, wouldn't it be perfect if the way that the MCU was to bring in Deadpool was to bring him in the Westview, which would explain why he's not able to curse, why he's not able to do his normal Deadpool things because he's under this hex. One could only dream, right? Dream, nightmare, Mephisto. We'll talk about the villains here in a bit, but as I digress, again, we see Monica trying to tell her this, but she doesn't want to hear it. And if you all notice, the neighbors were the ones kind of looking in on this kind of fight that was going on, this confrontation between Monica and Wanda. And we see a shot of the mailman who looks to be delivering some things to Agnes' house, which might speak to some things in her basement. But also, we haven't seen this character in a while, and that is Dottie, as she's kind of doing her guarding thing, looking on to this fight. I'm telling you all now, Dottie is a key player. It's very key that when we first met Dottie and we hear Agatha say that she is the key of the town, I think she's a head witch. We'll get to that here in a bit. But really interesting moment. Again, we see Monica trying to talk to Wanda. Agnes comes into the mix again, takes Wanda away, and Wanda warns her, don't mess with me or I don't want to hurt you. We know that Wanda's a good person, but when she's angry at you, when you're on her bad side, that is a side you do not want to be on. Cut to Wanda, and this was probably the most sinister moment of this episode of the season so far. The creepy, eerie vibes. We see Wanda sitting down on the couch while Agnes is getting her some tea. She notices a fly on the wall, and again, you just get a sense of this isn't in the same world of the hex. She's not affected by the hex. Things are quiet in her house. As we see Wanda ask her, where are the kids, right? Because again, watching these kids under Agnes' protection isn't a good thing. We see Agnes says, oh, they're probably in the basement playing. I don't know too many kids that play in basements these days, but nonetheless, we see Wanda make her way into this creepy basement, which reminded me so much of like Nightmare of Elm Street, reminded me of The Evil Dead, especially when we talk about that magical book. But as she goes through the basement, and again, the creepy vibes, the aspect ratio goes into reality. We see that she goes into this kind of dungeon, Agatha Harkness dungeon, as she comes upon this book, which if you all notice, the book didn't have the same Agatha, which we'll get to Agatha Harkness reveal, but it didn't have her purple kind of magical essence around it. It was a different color around that book, which might allude to someone else is in control. This book, which we'll talk about here in a bit, is in someone else's control. But the big moment is as Agatha is rubbing her pet rabbit, Senior Scratchy, she makes the reveal. We've all kind of saw this coming. I don't think this was too big of a secret or too big of a surprise, at least for people like me and people that read the comics. Some people might be like, oh my goodness, who's Agatha Harkness? As we've all been talking about for weeks, let alone probably months. But she reveals that it was her, that she was the one that's been kind of in control. As again, let me go back to this book. Now, this book has a lot of importance as we see that this book is, again, under someone else's control. If I am to assume, this is the DarkHold. Now, if you all aren't too familiar with that, that is something that is in the MCU. If you all watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which I haven't, but I know that they had like an episode regarding around this book. But in the comics, this DarkHold, also known as the Book of Sins or the Book of Spells, is an ancient book of all knowledge, I don't know if this book was taken from, as we all know, Doctor Strange was taken out of the MCU for 5 years. There was no Sorcerer Supreme. Was it under the Ancient One's protection before she left? And obviously Doctor Strange. So was Agatha, Mephisto, Nightmare. Again, Chiwetel Ejiofor's character might have given this book to someone else, given it to Agnes, given it to Mephisto or Nightmare or someone else entirely. But again, this book holds the knowledge. It has a lot of knowledge, and it is a very powerful book. Again, I think it's safe to say that this book is the DarkHold. Cut to, again, Agatha Harkness revealing herself, saying that, oh, Wanda, did you think you were the only girl with powers in this town? Which I think, again, that line is very key. Not only is Wanda, now Tommy having some type of abilities, we also know that Dottie, I think it's safe to say that Dottie has some abilities as well and has some doings over this kind of hex protection, as we get a really cool kind of flashback montage of sorts of it was Agatha Harkness all alone. We get the reveal that she was behind a talent show, Herb, Pietro, the freak out moment of Vision at the stop sign. It was all a hoax. She was the interviewer in this episode. And oh yeah, she was the one that killed Sparky. End of the episode, but no, not quite yet. We get a post-credit scene as we see Monica making her way to Agatha Harkness's basement. She opens the doors. She sees the purple magical beans. And then we see my boy Pietro, who tells her scoopers be scooping. Again, there's theories out there that he is not actually Pietro. I think that he is. I think we've yet to meet Ralph. We've yet to see who was the person in witness protection program. We really don't know what happens to the beekeeper. We don't know who the mailbox guy is. We don't know who Dottie is. So great post-credit scene. I think this clocked in right around like 31 minutes in total in regards to runtime. But only thing I didn't like about the episode, as I had mentioned, was the Dorsey Vision stuff with them, him learning about, who he is important, but the execution of those scenes really didn't work for me. I was kind of let down by the intro because, again, I'm a big Office fan. But besides that stuff, again, Wanda losing control, the missing children theory that I have with the twins not only missing, but also other kids in the town missing. And I think that's going to be pivotal moving forward. Again, I love the stuff of, again, we kind of saw the Agatha Harkness reveal coming, but it's about the execution. And even though I knew that was going to be the reveal of the character, it was still executed really well. I love that kind of flashback sequence of showing that she was the one that brought Pietro into the equation. Again, you all have to remember in regards to this show, something that is missing from the MCU timeline or in this universe. There's no Infinity Stone. So the reality, the idea of reality being in place is not there anymore, which is going to be so key to not only this show, Spider-Man 3, it explains Doc Ock, Electro, potentially other Spider-Man. It explains Multiverse of Madness. They don't have the reality stone anymore, which speaks to my theory many weeks ago. I think this show is not only going to bring back Ultron, but also bring back the Infinity Stones. I don't know if Wanda's going to be the reason behind that. Sword, AIM, Hydra, I can't wait to find out. Mephisto is still the running theory. Nightmare is still the running theory, because also that DarkHold was in the dark dimensions, which can speak to another dimension of Mephisto or Nightmare. So much to kind of look forward to in the coming weeks, and I am to assume that in the coming weeks, we're going to learn who Ralph is, the actual engineer. We're going to learn more about why someone wants Agatha, or whoever this is, wants the Darkhold. But I think next week is going to be a flashback episode. I think we're going to learn more about Agatha Harkness. I think that in the comics, her new Salem, she was in the witch trials. I think that she took her powers, took some of her coven to Westview, and this is her kind of hold on the town until Wanda got in the mix and she's feeding off her energy, or someone else it made her do this in regards to who's maybe the boss of Agatha Harkness. So I think next week we're going to get a flashback, and then the finale is going to catch us up to Vision making it home, Monica being there, Pietro, and whoever that Luke Skywalker character is, Magneto, Professor X, someone else, and I know Captain Marvel's been out there, Doctor Strange. I can't wait, ladies and gentlemen. This is just the tip of the iceberg. Again, we're going to dive even deeper into this episode tomorrow at 3 p.m. Central Time. Myself, Amanda, Chris, Michael, my boy Q, as well as Shalon, 3 p.m. Central Time. Come to watch the live stream. And we're also going to talk about the latest news in the MCU. It's going to be such a fun time, and I can't wait to see you all there in the chat having a great conversation. As always, again, leave your thoughts in the comments, your theories, your predictions. Like the video, share the video, as well as subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell. That way you don't miss any of my other content. Hope you all are staying safe out there. Thank you for watching this review, and we'll see you in the next video.